The Florida Panthers go into Boston and get a thrilling win on the road in a game where even though the Florida Panthers never trailed, sometimes it felt that the Boston Bruins were gonna take this one. But no, we have a game 6 down in South Florida on Friday night.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Thursday, April 27th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. And you can also follow the show on Instagram as well at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come here to get your daily Florida Panthers fix every single day. And wow, what a win. What a night for South Florida. This is a live version of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. It is a Cats After Dark edition of the show, and waited to record after the Miami Heat game as well, of course, with the Florida Panthers having the 7 p.m. game and the Miami Heat having 9:30. Wanted to take a little bit of a time to, of course, catch the end of that one and get some more good fortunes coming into this show, as I'm representing the Heat and the Panthers in this one with my apparel, if you are watching this on the YouTube channel. But my goodness, what a game for the Florida Panthers on Wednesday night as they go into Boston and pick up a big road win. Now their second win at the TD Garden in this series. And listen, you guys can go back to my episode, even with Doug Plagans and even with Alex Dono. I felt kind of defeated. And I know a lot of you guys did too. And the way the Florida Panthers fell flat at home in games 3 and 4. And to think that after going 19-19-3 on the road this season in the regular season, falling flat and then thinking, okay, this is the best regular season team ever. 40 some odd point difference. I don't know the exact number on the top of my head. I don't care, honestly. But the Panthers don't see it that way. They are going to get on the ice. They're going to give it their all. They're going to give the Boston Bruins that challenge. And even for the Boston Bruins, I mean, let's go right into just who's starting in net. And Sergei Bobrovsky having a not so good game 4. Let's call it for what it is. And then even me myself thinking that Alex Lyon should have the crease on Wednesday night, and then going back to Bob. I mean, remember what I said? If you go back to the conversation with Alex Dono, I think it should be Lyon, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Sergei Bobrovsky. And listen, this was a show us type of game for Sergei Bobrovsky going into Wednesday night. And the Panthers didn't really do him any favors early on. I mean, the Panthers, especially early on, left all alone on a change and had 2 Boston Bruins players going on a 2-on-0, and then Sergei Bobrovsky stops Nosek. And with the Florida Panthers, I mean, the goaltending, Sergei Bobrovsky, lateral movement's great. Being up on the crease to take away the shooting angles as well. And for also the players who were in the lineup versus out. I mean, Ryan Lomberg didn't play. Aaron Ekblad was back from injury after missing game 4 as well. And also Zach Dalpe playing in his second straight game as well, and a little bit of a line juggle with Eetu Luostarinen being back on the third line, Nick Cousins going on the second as well. And in the playoffs, you got to have these type of shakeups when your backs are up against the wall as well. And the Panthers have gone off to fast starts, and it proved again in Game 3. But the problem for the Panthers has been that consistency, and even for them going into the second period, I mean, Boston dominating that second period, 18-8 shot on goal advantage. I mean, listen, the first goal and even the last one was given to the Panthers in this one. I mean, Bertuzzi tries a clearing attempt and then turns it over. And the move that Carter Verhaeghe had to force Linus Ullmark out of his net and then throwing it towards him, trying to make something out of nothing when you force the goaltender out, and then Anthony Duclair batting it into the open net. And 2 goals on the night where Linus Ullmark, you force him out of the net, and the Panthers are converting, and just Carter Verhaeghe having 3 primary assists on the night. And as far as postseason points, he's only 2 behind Alexander Barkov, and he's played 10 less postseason games than the captain in a Florida Panthers uniform, by the way. This isn't career points. This is points in a Florida Panthers uniform. Carter Verhaeghe is 2 points behind Sasha Barkov. But also the Panthers are in this position, forcing a Game 6 with Sasha Barkov not performing to the best of his, that we know that he can perform. And Barkov, yeah, he had 6 hits on the night. Yeah, he was finishing his checks. That hit on Garnet Hathaway that we were talking about for at least the first intermission and even the second one. And even Duclair had a great start to the game. He was very quick to pucks, getting it, trying to get it into the slot for opportunities. And Sam Bennett, he was fighting for pucks as well. There was one point where he was on his tush and keeping the puck into the zone. But man, that second period, I mean, the Florida Panthers, that penalty happened for them in period number 2, where the Panthers were pinned in their own zone, and then the Boston Bruins are going on the power play, which the power play for the Boston Bruins, I mean, their first one that they got in the game, great penalty kill by the Florida Panthers, only allowing 1 shot on goal. But then the second one, the entries were very clean on for the Boston Bruins, getting in front of Sergei Bobrovsky, and then that shot by Brad Marchand that squeaks by Bobrovsky. I mean, yeah, you're supposed to save it, but even a little slower for Mark Stahl to get to that puck once it's squeaked behind him, and then Marchand's momentum goes towards the net, and then Marchand knocks it in to make it 1-1 at the time. And yeah, Mark Stahl multiple times in this game had opportunities to clear pucks and just very slow to react. Not only did I speak about it on I'm speaking about it now on today's show, but I also spoke about it with the guys over at Panther Puri, and I joined their podcast for their Thursday episode. So go check out that, where I also give my thoughts and all on this game. But also, when the Panthers were on their first power play, when Lauko goes to the box for slashing Carter Verhaeghe, the Panthers penalty kill was abysmal. Multiple shorthanded chances. Bennett tried a drop pass and where nobody was there, and then the Boston Bruins go on a rush the other way. They have a 2-on-1 a few seconds later. Marchand chips it around, and then Zacha has a shot that's saved by Sergei Bobrovsky. And even when Lauko comes out of the box, there's a 3-on-2 going towards Bobrovsky. So, and the rush chances and the rush goals that the Boston Bruins had, I mean, just going into this game, rush goals going into game 5, 4 for Boston, 0 for Florida. Rush chances 11-2 in favor of Boston. Odd man rushes 9-4 in favor of Boston. And that's just going into game 5. But game 5, in as far as statistically, the Panthers were outplayed in every facet. Corsi for percentage at 5-on-5, 76-43 in favor of Boston. Shots on goal, 47-25 on the night for in favor of Boston as well. It was a game where you were just waiting and waiting and waiting for Boston to, every time they tied the game, what's going to happen next? Are they gonna capitalize on a mistake that the Florida Panthers made? I mean, the Panthers had multiple, a really dumb too many men on the ice penalty where like 6 players were like halfway across going from one half wall to the other. And just, that's an embarrassing penalty. And that was with 3 minutes left in the third period. And Ekblad going to the box twice. Aaron Ekblad coming back from injury. He didn't have his best game. But you find a way to win. You never trail. This is the weird thing. It felt like the Panthers trailed in this game when they didn't at all. That's the strange thing about it. That's just the strange thing of playoff hockey as well. And let's also point the fact that they now have more power play goals in this postseason than they did all of last postseason. 2 of 13, baby. Still not a good stat, but the Panthers are 2 of 13 on the power play in the postseason. Carter Hagee, 3 primary assists. And also, that goal by Sam Reinhart on the power play. Check out what the Panthers did when they got up high, to the point. Quick pass to Matthew Tkachuk on the wing. You see Matt Grzelcyk drawing towards Tkachuk. Brendan Carlos drawing towards Sam Bennett, who's on the blue paint, leaving Sam Reinhart all alone on that in the slot to give the Panthers a 3-2 lead at the time. And also Nick Cousins, credit to Nick Cousins for the game that he had. There's a 2-on-0 rush that he had an opportunity to score on Linus Hallmark, and even had one earlier prior to that. And then him and Carter Hagee on that board battle that forced the puck out, and then Carter Hagee finding Sam Bennett, who was very quick to get that release off too. Because a lot of times in this game, if the Panthers were not getting the puck off their stick quick, the Boston Bruins were there to close it out and take away the shooting lane. So big credit to the Florida Panthers. Very opportunistic, even in a game that they didn't play well in. You find a way to win on the road. And 2 out of 3 at TD Garden, on where you have a chance to come back to your barn. And going into the night, let me check this stat real quick. I had it written down for yesterday's show. Both road teams in tonight's games won. So now road teams are 23-12 in the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. In segment number 2, we are going to discuss more about the quotes that players, Paul Maurice, said after the game. We are going to discuss more of the perspective as well going into Game 6. Now that we do have a Game 6 in Sunrise, Florida, we are going to discuss that more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about Built Bar. And are you looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories? Then you need the best tasting protein bar ever, Built. You got to try this. If you're like me and you want to make healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just the thing for you. Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy and taste amazing. Seriously, they taste so amazing you won't think they're good for you. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk into the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, and coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box of our hit flavors, brownie batter puff and churro puffs. You can thank me later. Back on this second segment here on this live edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. As I look at my laptop right now, for those who aren't watching live and who listen on the podcast, right now my clock says 12:55 a.m. And as the great Scott Van Pelt says every time he hosts SportsCenter, I'm not tired yet. And coincidentally, Scott Van Pelt and myself have one thing in common. We started our media careers at the Golf Channel here in Orlando. So a little bit of similarities from yours truly and SVP. But yeah, not tired yet. By the way, everyone, we have a little bit of a giveaway. We have not one, but 2 t-shirts here from games 3 and 4, the Time to Hunt one, and the one from game 4 with the Leaping Panther. So here's the giveaway. And it depends on which social media outlet I check first. It's just going to depend. Whoever sends me a screenshot of their subscription to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast first, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, or email at lockedonflapanthers@gmail.com, you will get a free t-shirt of one of these from games 3 and 4. But you have to be subscribed to the YouTube channel. Send in your screenshot, and the first person to send it, whichever I see first, you will get one of these shirts, because these are XLs. And if you can't tell by looking at me, I'm not an XL. I'm actually a size small. So a perfect opportunity for me to gift something to all of you guys. But let's talk about what was said after the game. And just, again, this was the show us game for Sergei Bobrovsky. But also the leadership that Sergei Bobrovsky had after the game, about the emotions needing to settle down after a big win on the road. I mean, listen, ladies and gentlemen, the mission is not done yet for this Florida Panthers team. There's still a big hill to climb. Yeah, we talked about yesterday how 9.5% is that number to come back from a 3-1 lead. Spoke about the 3 game 7s that Josh Mahura spoke about, which Wednesday night was the first. But I love what Sergei Bobrovsky said after the game about needing to settle down, needing to, okay, you got the win, you didn't play your best, but now it's time to go back to the drawing board, go back to creating better habits than what you had in earlier in the series, because it wasn't a great game, especially by the blue line. I mean, Mark Stahl, Aaron Ekblad, just to name 2. Brandon Montour had a shot that was blocked, and then the Panthers were just scrambling, and the Boston Bruins were able to take advantage of that. That was the Taylor Hall goal, I believe. And I didn't even get to mention that Patrice Bergeron made his return back to the lineup. Barkov was contained by Patrice Bergeron in this game. I mean, just looking at Corsi for percentage 5-on-5 for the top line, 11 shot attempts for the Panthers for that top line versus 23 for their opposition. So just a lot of things that need to improve on the night for the Florida Panthers on that front. And there was a quote that Paul Maurice said in relation to Brandon Montour's injury and going to the locker room. And so this was the quote. This is a tweet from Kobe Guy of Florida Hockey Now. It says, Brandon Montour had a contusion of the testicular variety, per Paul Maurice. He said he's fine. And that can mean anything, but he said he's fine. So next time Randy Moeller says on the broadcast, when Brandon Montour scores 2 goals and he says he has a big pair, now we got to question and ask what he means. And also, let me give Randy Moeller a little bit credit on one of the coolest lines that he said in all of probably this season when the Panthers had that too many men on the ice penalty. He said, "For the love of Sam Adams." And of course, if you guys don't drink, Sam Adams is from Boston. So like the little Boston reference that Randy Moeller had on the broadcast today. Also, with the officiating towards the end, the hold that Sam Bennett had, disagree with it as well. But I'm not entirely upset about the end of the game right before Brad Marchand. It was right before Brad Marchand had that breakaway where Sergei Bobrovsky kept the door shut and sent this to overtime. But that McAvoy slash on Bennett in the regular season, is it a call? Absolutely. But, and this might be my officiating bias as someone who does officiate, you don't want to call that. You don't want to call that at the end of the game. And I spoke about it once again with the guys from Panther Prairie about how, going back to the hit that Cale Makar had on Jared McCann a few days ago, about knowing the high profile player that Cale Makar is and having to decide a game. You don't want to be in that position, and not upset about it. I mean, hell, the Panthers won. So I know we'd probably maybe have a different conversation had that gone the other way. Yes, I totally understand that. But I'm personally glad that the Panthers were able to find a win on their own terms. That's the thing. You want them to earn it. January 2nd. The Panthers are the day after that. They were just coming off a loss at home against the New York Rangers on New Year's Eve. The Panthers were 9 points out of the out of the last wild card spot, and they were clawing, inching their way closer to that playoff spot. There were a few setbacks, obviously. What happened before the trade deadline with all the injuries mounting at the same time. Come trade deadline, this team doesn't make a single move. And this team continued to play with their backs against the wall. Maybe they like doing that. Maybe they like playing that way, which is stressful for us, the fans, to witness. But sometimes you are really exposed, good or bad, in pressure situations. And Matthew Tkachuk is that dude. Carter Verhaeghe is that dude. I still believe that Alexander Barkov is that dude too. Sam Bennett is that dude. Brandon Montour is that dude. And for tonight, Sergei Bobrovsky was. For tonight. And the ability as well to contain the Boston Bruins as well. Yeah, Marchand got on the score sheet. Bergeron, Taylor Hall, a former Hart Trophy winner. But you were able to weather storms. And got to give credit to Paul Maurice for his ability to weather storms at times. And having a grasp on the group. I know there's still a lot of criticism of his quote unquote playoff hockey. And I still have my skepticism as well as him being the coach to take the Panthers to the promised land. But one thing we can see is a slow progress of this team continuing to build, because imagine if you're just going into Boston, you're getting stomped on and you go out like this. Then we're talking about a bad taste in our mouth going into the offseason. And question after question. I mean, there's still questions about this roster. There's still questions about this penalty kill, too. The Bruins went 2 for 5 on the night. But the willingness to never back down, and my song of the night, my theme song of the night is I Will Not Bow by Breaking Benjamin. The Panthers were not going to be tossed around. They weren't going to let Boston, the greatest regular season team of all time, they weren't going to allow them to end this series early. So we have a Game 6 Friday, and we're going to discuss more about that Game 6 in the next segment here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about eBay Motors. And for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part you need to fit right. The next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you'll be sure every part you need fits right. First time around, just add your ride to my garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right part, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Third and final segment here on this Thursday, April 27th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. And for the everydayers, on tomorrow's edition of the show, it's a Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We'll be previewing Game 6 between the Florida Panthers and the Boston Bruins. And it's crazy, ladies and gentlemen, because, of course, as a podcaster, as someone who brings you daily content on this team, I was starting to think about what my schedule would have been this week if the Panthers didn't have a game. Probably would have obviously had this post-game show and then wait until Friday night to do a show because of quotes about locker room clean out and talk about what the Panthers done this year as far as growing and then building off-season momentum and yada, yada, yada. But I'm so glad that the season is continued tonight to Friday night. And programming note, the Florida Panthers versus Boston Bruins game will be at 7:30 on TNT. And a 4-game Friday night too in the NHL. And with the Miami Heat winning, all of South Florida's focus will be solely on the Florida Panthers, which is a beautiful thing. And it's great to see that the Panthers will have a spotlight on Friday night. And with the Boston Bruins coming into Florida and getting 2 wins, and one of them wasn't even necessarily close, Game 3 I'm talking about, but you had a chance in Game 4 when you cut it to 3-2, and Bergeron's back, and you had a little bit of a taste of Bergeron. Now he's here to play the rest of the series. Yeah, David Krejci didn't play for the Boston Bruins, but it's just a big opportunity to just continue the fight and just creating stuff out of nothing, which the Florida Panthers all season, they were second in the NHL on creating chances off the forecheck. And a lot of their plays on Wednesday night, 3 out of the 4 goals were created off broken plays. And opportunity is the name of this game. And the Florida Panthers got to continue to find it. And yeah, we know now who will be in net on Friday. We know who it is now. We don't have any more questions. And who knows, we could be right back here on Friday night going into Saturday with a whole bunch of criticism of this team as well. Who knows? Our mood can be completely different. And you know what? Prior to this series even starting, I said Boston in 6, which I'm hating that pick now because I want the Florida Panthers to win so badly. And I know you guys do too. And here's one thing before we sign off. I really hope that I'm wrong. I would be so happy to be wrong about the Panthers and going up against this best team ever. Their PK at times being a mess, as we know, but we did not expect a goaltending performance like this. And give Bobrovsky his roses. He definitely deserves it tonight. And maybe, hey, Game 4 was that warm-up game for him in order to get him right. And look what, and this could be, who knows? This could be the start of something. But hey, one game at a time, one shift at a time. And South Florida, we are very fortunate that this season is continuing after Wednesday. Thank you guys as always for listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. For the everydayers, on Friday's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, Nick Fairbanks will be returning to the show to preview the Florida Panthers versus Boston Bruins game on Friday night, give his thoughts on the series up to this point, and South Florida, let's shock the world. So in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On AHL network, including Locked On AHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On AHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And don't forget to also subscribe to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast on Twitter at @LO_FLA Panthers and on Instagram at @LO_FLA Panthers, and you and myself on Twitter as well at MondoMan12, where you'll see reactions, insight, and everything as far as not only the Florida Panthers but the entirety of the South Florida sports scene. So see you guys on Friday. So I'm Armando Velez signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.